So, next coming to the idea of danda, the punishment, the force, he talks about the ruler's strong belief in ethics and higher values is guided by righteousness, dharma. So, danda is a symbol of royal authority. It represents the coercive power that a state wields to maintain order and security to prevent machanyaya, as we have discussed, the anarchy, the law of the jungle. To avoid the law of the jungle, the dandaniti has been given in Kautilya's Arthashastra. But he talks about that this is not brute force. There is the dandaniti is to be calculated, and there is a strategic approach to governance. Just to quote one of his sutra, Sabigyata pranito hi dandaha prajadharma artha kameir jojoyati duspranita kama krodha vyang abhagyanadhat banaprastha paribrajakanapi kopayati king anga punargrahasthana. When the king applies danda wisely, it enjoins his subjects to dharma, artha and kama. If he applies with ill intention, born of passion, hatred or contempt, it angers even the ascetics, not to mention the householders. Thus, Kautilya's Arthashastra is often revered as the ultimate guide to governance and statecraft. So, after internal administration, he focuses more on the external dimensions in the books which is related to the expansion of the army, fighting the war, how the king who is looking for victory, Vijikshu, who is looking for Vijaya, so Vijikshu, how he has to follow the military strategy. So, he gives the account of the army, and which is the backbone of state security. Here he talks about a strong, loyal and well-trained army is fundamental to any state security, both internally and externally. So, he talks about different types of armies, particularly land-based armies, and each type had its own strength and weaknesses. Then the different forms of warfare, like the Arthashastra carries detailed accounts of this warfare, direct confrontation, guerrilla warfare, psychological warfare, then how you follow the strategy and tactics depending on the enemy's strength and weakness. So, there are accounts of the role of the commander-in-chief, how the commander-in-chief has to carry out the operations, execution, adaptability. These are again detailed in its analytical rigor. You find detailed analysis of the functioning of the military. Next important, which is missing in many modern day security systems, many states, that is what Kautilya emphasizes on the secret service and intelligence network. Talk about intel op and all high sounding terms. But see, such a scholar who could see more than 2300 years back, what is the role of intelligence network? What should be the role of spies, informants? What is the covert operations? So, he talks about the covert aspect of state security, which is crucial for maintaining internal stability and gaining an edge over the external adversaries. So, he gives importance to spies and informants. Spies played a vital role in gathering information. They operated both within the state and in enemy territories, providing critical intelligence and informed strategic decisions. So, Kautilya advocates for even use of women as spies to obtain the secrets of enemy nation. He was far ahead of his times in his all analysis, and he prescribed the operations like covert operations. Kautilya advocated for the use of covert operations to destabilize enemies, gather intelligence, protect the state from internal threats. Next, very important is all about psychological warfare. So, this is what Tantra Yakta, he talks this word psycho-op, we call it now. You can say the cyber threat and all that. The like modern information warfare or psycho-ops, as we are mostly understanding these threats coming as transnational threats. Here, even Kautilya lays down the psychological tactics as a part of a broad diplomatic strategy. Spreading misinformation, propaganda were tools used to weaken the enemy's resolve and create internal discord. Coming to the internal security, Kautilya outlined a very important role for the police force and internal security, gave much more importance to their role, police and internal forces, for law enforcement, surveillance and coordination with the secret service. He talks about even surveillance. There was intelligence and counterintelligence. You can't think of it. He talks about counterintelligence. Even some the kings, the courtiers with the king also, they were subject to some sort of surveillance. Coordination with the secret service. Talks about secret service also. So, that is how internal threats were very important for those states. So, that is how he has a foolproof security network to face any sort of internal threats. Coming to Kautilya's idea of principles of justice, Dandaniti. So, he talks about how the king has to expand the territory. Expanding the territory, principles of mandala, the Raja Mandala. We'll just, you will see the figure just now, how he talks about the Vijikshu, the king for victory, who is in search of victory, a Dharma Vijayin. So, Arthashastra calls for moral consideration even in war. So, what is this says? So, different types of, he talks about Dharma Vijayi, Haranena Lova Vijayi, Bhumi Drabya Putra Dhara Prana Harena Sura Vijayi. So, the point is, he is talking about, contrary to popular perception, he says there are very strong moral considerations to be adopted in times of war. For instance, after conquering a fort, the king should give abhaya, freedom, to those who have been defeated, trying to escape without weapons. But the king should not mindlessly plunder and kill the subjects of other kingdoms, because only the gains obtained by Dharmika king from an Adharmika are pleasing to both his own subjects and others. So, everywhere the idea of right conduct, good conduct, dharma comes to dominate the practice of statecraft. Next, as we discussed, what is the interest of the state? To expand its territory by following the foreign policy. Present times we talk about foreign policy as a grand strategy. In Kautilya, in fact, we find all the features of a grand strategy in his concept of Raj Mandala. Raj Mandala is all about the circle of kings, the Rajas, including Vijikshu. Vijikshu, who is the king looking for victory. Ari is enemy, Mitra. So, other Rajas within Raj Mandala are based on their positioning, and the figure will show you how the positioning takes. Ari Mitra, enemy's ally, because your Ari is enemy, your enemy's enemy is your friend. So, that is how you call it Ari Mitra Mitra. Then Mitra Mitra, different categories. Parsa Nigraha, enemy in the rear, who is in the back side. Akranda, ally in the rear. Then Parsa Nigraha Asara, rear enemy's ally. Arkanda Asara. So, this figure shows you all different types of threats coming from across the border. The Kautilyan state should expand territorially, but diplomacy and covert actions are the preferred means to that end. Kautilya here also argues for expansionism, but he wants that everything has to be just and according to the scriptures, so called the religious tenets, the day-to-day practice, fair practices, the common rules. So, in the Arthashastra, no expansionist policy was propagated. Though it looks Kautilya to be a battle-hardened military practitioner, but he treated military issues more from a theoretical and strategic point of view. His military strategy and tactics was more guided by ethical principles. Now, we find so many concepts coming from Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Clausewitz and other Western writers who have come, of course. Earlier, Thucydides, the great historian, he talked about the Sparta and Athens, the war, Greek city-states and all that. That is also a classic war for the Helen of Troy and all that. But here, Kautilya's writings are very, very clear, and he talks about how the war has to be conducted and the principle of morality, the ethics. Those were the main guiding tenets for any king, any administration. Find more stability and order within the state. Kautilya emphasized on the threats met by having proper appointment of people, including ministers, spies, then there is different other persons working for the welfare of the country. So, he was very methodical about the functionaries and what roles they should be playing for the particular department which is allotted to them. So, mandala theory is the plain blueprint of the expedition with the intention of world conquest for a Vijikshu, because Kautilya believes in strength and power. For him, power is the possession of strength, and these are in three forms. Kautilya in his book Mantra Shakti, the power of knowledge, the power of counsel; power Prabhu Shakti, power of might; the power of treasury and army, that is the both economic and political power; Utsha Shakti, Utsha Shakti is our power of energy, the power of bravery. Likewise, success is also, he says, how the king has to conquer and how he should desire victory over the enemy. But his main intention should be to establish unified sovereign world empire for the benefit of the masses. This is somewhat a great theory which provides a key to geostrategic analysis of interstate relations or geopolitics, which we usually discuss in the domain of international relations. So, all these types of threats coming from abroad and how the king or the Vijikshu has to follow the principles of Raja Mandala. So, here this Mandala theory, to substantiate it further, it is something called like a geopolitical consideration of a country. The Mandala theory includes at least 12 state categories in the circle of a state. If you look carefully, you find the Vijikshu, the king, is at the center, and he is the would-be conqueror who is looking for victory, Vijikshu, looking for Vijaya. So, second is Ari. Ari is the main enemy of Vijikshu. Third is Mitra, the Vijikshu's ally or friend. In fifth, we have Mitra Mitra, the friend of the ally. Sixth, we have Ari Mitra Mitra, or the ally of an enemy's friend. Seventh, we have Parsa Nigraha, enemy in the rear of the Vijikshu. Eighth, Akranda, And 9th, Parsanigraha or the ally of Parsanigraha. 10th, Akrandashara, the ally of Akranda. 11th, Madhyama or the middle kingdom, which bordering both Bijikshu and the Ari or the middle power country. Meanwhile, the 12th, you have Udasina, a country which is lying outside, indifferent, neutral, more powerful than Bijikshu, Ari and Madhyami, but it is a major power. It is having the policy of wait and watch, and it will decide its time. So, this was something Kautilya's very, very futuristic analysis, which we find in the context of present international state system and major powers, how the global politics, as you know, we follow about hybrid war, trade war, so many different dimensions of conflicts are covering many parts of the globe. So, Kautilya's use of these concepts like psychological warfare, propaganda against enemy, futuristic. And as he rightly recommends that a king establishes just rule in the conquered territory, and its foreign policy should be the furtherance of its national interest. The objectives are the protection of the people of the state, employment of economic policies to increase the wealth and welfare of the population, and the political leadership symbolizes the prestige, economy, wealth and the military security. So, and all encompassing how there is need for stability of the state. If we talk about different types of war also, usual text, he talks about different types of war. Mantra Yuddha, Prakasha Yuddha, Kuta Yuddha, Tusrinim Yuddha. This is very important. As you know, we are talking about different, the skirmishes on the border, rightly for last month or so, the whole subcontinent, South Asia has been gripped by war hysteria and threats, weapons of mass destruction, like there is a nuclear angle. So, he talks about this Kuta Yuddha, for example, irregular warfare, including ambushes followed by Maoists now, irregular warfare, hit and run tactics. Tusrim Yuddha. Tusrim Yuddha is covert operations like sabotage and targeted killings. You can discern the answer yourself, because these are very common in many places. In the war zones, as you know, there is targeted killings of people, citizens, capitals, cities, different areas. So, here Kautilya advises that if a war becomes inevitable, efforts should be made to avoid a prolonged war, and an offensive is recommended in case there is an overwhelming superiority over an already weakened opponent. Actually, Kautilya is not all out for war. He says peace is to be given priority. He favored Tusrim Yuddha or covert war, where mental faculties like intelligence, foresight, psychological skills and ingenuity matter. So, he talks about, you followed how to overcome the threats, the ruler or the country has to follow these Sadgunya, 6 elements within the broader context of diplomacy. That is what Sandhi, Vigraha, Asana, Yana, Samsraya, Dvedibhav. These are very important. While quoting previous strategists like Bharadwaja and others, he states in Arthashastra, book number 712, making an agreement, treaty, war, staying quiet, marching, seeking shelter and dual policy constitutes the 6 measures. These are the 6 measures. We will just highlight one by one. Sandhi. Kautilya defines Sandhi meaning as entering a treaty with the enemy or any friend with good intention. This principle refers to treaty making or establishing alliances. It involves diplomatic efforts to negotiate agreements, settlements between nations to avoid conflicts or resolve existing ones. So, each of these sandhis of decline are undertaken as policy measures if the Rajya or Vijikshu is in a weaker position, either helplessness or an act of buying time. So, Kautilya also talks about other types of sandhis. Kosapanata sandhi, offering the money from treasury. Dandopanata sandhi, making an offer of the army. Atmapanata sandhi, surrendering oneself. Deshopanata Sandhi, surrendering territory. So, similar other situations are listed as Briddhi Sandhi. That is what you agree for the expansion of its empire. That is Briddhi Sandhi. So, coming to this other elements, Bigraha. After Sandhi, Bigraha. Bigraha meaning injury is war. It is defined Bigraha. It involves strategies to address aggression or threats from other states, which may include defensive measures or retaliatory action. Asana. Asana represents indifference or keeping quiet. That is what principle of wait and watch suggests. The strategic use of silence or non-engagement in certain situations to observe and assess developments without overtly revealing intentions or positions. Yana. Yana denotes preparing for an eventual war or marching, which is opted as a state policy while waiting for the enemy to weaken or face difficulties. In modern military strategy, this is deterrence. As you know, deterrence in conventional and also in nuclear terms. How Kautilya was so ahead of his times. Strategic thinking. Samsraya. Samsraya refers to surrender. This principle involves recognizing when it is strategically advantageous to yield or to submit to a stronger adversary to avoid further losses or gains concessions through negotiation. Then last is very important is Dvaidhi Bhava is the concept of dual policy. It encompasses the ability to employ multiple and sometimes contradictory strategies simultaneously, such as engaging in diplomacy with one adversary while also engaging in war against the other, or overtly being in alliance with one adversary and covertly knitting means to attack or injure them. This principle essentially deals with the idea of deception and covert activities while keeping the adversary under the impression that they are at peace with you. Very, very important and very, very complex strategic thinking here we find in Kautilya's Arthashastra. So, the realist in Kautilya emphasizes the concept of yoga khyama such that the act of acquiring can never be the cost of expanding, guarding and enjoying what one already has. Here, yoga and khyama hold equal weight, hence highlighting that the best policy decision is one that offers you maximum gains at a minimum cost. So, in the final analysis, the Arthashastra with its meticulous commentary, innovative terminology and comprehensive coverage is an enduring legacy of ancient India that extends beyond its immediate historical context, and it is resonating with contemporary challenges and aspirations. In an era characterized by the modern era, we have been overtaken by rapid globalization, technological advancement and geopolitical uncertainties. So, insights from Kautilya's Arthashastra offer a timeless roadmap for navigating the complexities of governance. By emphasizing ethical conduct, strategic foresight and holistic welfare, Kautilya presents a vision of governance that transcends temporal and spatial boundaries, offering a blueprint for building resilient, equitable and sustainable societies. In fact, I may share with you that now Kautilya's readings are taught in so-called the advanced universities of the West like Yale, Harvard, Oxford. They have the readings of Kautilya's Arthashastra, because how the strategic thinking of India has been discovered much later, whereas only recently we have some initiative taken by our educational authorities to propagate and to popularize these concepts, which are universal, very, very important for mankind for years to come. Thank you.